You read the title and are getting exactly what you clicked for. I am going to beat a Plants vs Zombies Nuzlocke. Beat. No chicanery, alright. I will be beating this game with Nuzlocke rules by the end of this video. Others have tried this one before, but not with this specific rule set, and as far as I'm aware, none have completed it. But if I'm wrong, it's okay. My aim is just to be a person who beat it, not the person. Enough with the yapping. There's 3 simple rules. The main one, whenever a plant is destroyed, it cannot be used again for the rest of the save file. That includes getting eaten, using itself up, or getting shoveled. When this plant dies, you do not have to shovel any duplicates that are alive. I've seen people do that. I think it just makes more sense to be banned from placing any more. The other 2 rules are, no restarting levels once you enter a level, unless it's because you forgot to buy the rake. And getting your brains eaten means you need to restart from the beginning. Or not, but more on that later. Other than that, there is one more caveat I will discuss when it's more relevant. But for now, let's begin the show. World 1 is upon us. Generally, it's pretty easy to beat World 1 deathless, as long as you play it carefully. Therefore, it won't be a bumpy ride, but I'll still make sure to explain each plant as I get it. First is the pea shooter, who cleans up this level fine. Not much to say, it's the only damage dealing plant before 1-7. Next is the sunflower, which is the most important plant in the game, since there is no substitute. It has to live until level 5-9, otherwise you cannot win whatsoever. The end of this level hands us our first insta-kill plant, Cherry Bomb, and as mentioned, we can only use this plant once, so we better be careful in choosing that opportunity. And it will definitely not be this level that swiftly grants us a walnut. Johnny is a peculiar plant. His job is to soak up damage and stall, but since he has no alternatives until 3-8, you need to be really careful when placing him so he doesn't get overwhelmed and die. Our vegetables give us another win, and also a shovel, which is of very little use to us. But it does lead us into our first kerfuffle. 1-5 is a conveyor belt level, and if we use the Nuzlocke rules for this stage, this challenge would be over, as this level is not possible with just 1 walnut and exploder nut each. That would also kill off walnut instantly, which alone might make this challenge impossible. I'm pretty sure each conveyor and mid-world level is doable, barring 1-5 and 5-10 Zombos. And as you cannot beat the final level, I choose to not count conveyor levels as a whole. I did this because I didn't want to be selective, and it does suck cutting 20% of the game out. I just think this was my only option. But trust me, this does not make this challenge easy, just possible and less dependent on RNG. If you really want to, you can imagine it so conveyors give you Crazy Dave's plants instead of you placing down your own. Walnut Bowling drops us a Potato Mine, which is a unique insta-kill plant, as whichever level we decide to use it in, we can place as many of them as we want until one blows up. And with this introduction comes the Pole Vaulter. Certain zombies are even more difficult than usual in a Nuzlocke. That includes this guy, who wants you to place some kind of distraction for him, which is not something you can always afford, as stacking 2 walnuts on top of another makes the front one more vulnerable. Even with what I just said, this level is easy peasy, and finally we get a plant that shoots and isn't just a default pea shooter. Arguably the best supportive DPS plant in the game, Snow Pea for sure is an integral part of this run. Slowing enemies and decreasing their damage dealing capabilities makes it a high priority for me. Placing a row of it defeats 1-7 and 1-8 begins with a Chomper, the only totally reusable insta-kill plant in the game. And a vital one at that, as if you don't have the sun for enough firepower, it can take care of those new bucketheads for sure, covering for that no insta-kill plant weakness. Our last level, 1-9, makes us use a repeater, which I have nothing interesting to comment about, and it lets us prance over to the level 110 that is definitely possible with no plants dead, albeit. Hey, all of the videos on this channel are quite long, and as you can imagine they take some time to make. It would be great if whoever is watching this, especially if you're new, would either like, subscribe, or comment something. Only one though, I'll let you choose which. I don't mind. Well, thanks. It means a lot. Love you guys. Here is World 2, with two mechanics that really complicate things. Before that, we get a puffshroom for our repertoire. Issue is that even though most plants are worse in this challenge, puffshroom has it bad. For how vital it is for the World 2 economy, it being intended to be easily sacrificable bids horribly to our rule set, making each puffshroom we place take up a space that a different plant and better plant could have occupied. And as just mentioned, you get a ton less money in this world, more after 2-1, but enough to where repeaters and such are rare cases, especially when gravestones take up space and safety. On the final wave, they put a severe stress on my walnuts, and additionally, lanes with high quantities of gravestones mean pushing defenses back, which also means less sun production. This is luckily improved with the introduction of the sun shroom, the second and last sun producer, and a plant that similarly cannot die. Although you can use sunflowers in the night, it slows you down tremendously, so most attempts after losing it die out. As of now, these graves do not stop us from setting up farms and a good defense, which handles 2-2 with no problems. The fume shroom was introduced to counter the screen door zombie, which is bad, as it means that he needs to stay alive or every screen door zombie meets costlier alternatives. It is great against gravestones though, killing the ones spawned efficiently. It just struggles on single target, and is just a worse pea shooter, making cone heads a bit of a headache. After unlocking the Grave Buster, this world really starts to pop off. Since the game intends you to use them, grave quantity and depth of where it spawns at increases. First of all, we can only use it once, and this really impacts the latter of World 2. Second of all, I have to bring it into every level because I don't know where the graves will be, so I am constantly -1 seed slot. Maybe there'll be a grave that decides to be too far up, then I have to get rid of it. I eventually developed a strategy where I would place sunshrooms in lanes with the least gravestones, to make up for lost space. Sadly, our first death of this attempt comes from the final wave, where the Johnny guarded by 2 fume shrooms dies because of this 3 grave lane with no snow pea. Similarly, a pole vaulter scales a different Johnny to take out a fume shroom on its last dying legs.
But since he has no alternatives until 3-8, you need to be really careful when placing him so he doesn't get overwhelmed and die, as it means that he needs to stay alive or every screen door zombie meets costlier alternatives.
So that's not good. This run is already looking fried. 2-5 was a whack-a-mole sequence that was easily beaten with no plants, and Hypnoshroom was added to our big list of insta-kills. It may be required for 2-6, as with the horrendously tanky football zombies, it's almost never possible to kill them with peas or fumes. Instead, you will always need to have sun available to place a chomper or insta-kill wherever the football zombie spawns. And this holding extra sun strategy is a real good one in this run, by the way. I noticed that it's almost never smart to place things early and drop down to 0 economy. It risks having your meat picks leaked in a different lane. Ideally for this stage, your chomper kills the easier football zombie and also the one on the final wave, but this is not always doable and you may need to hypnoshroom him instead. Also, earlier on 2-6, pesky coneheads left me no choice but to use 2 potato mines, killing it out of the run early. And as you saw, I do chomp the first zombie, but have to hypnoshroom the second. It's not ideal, but it's okay. I also want to point out that there are walnuts placed down. They shouldn't be. I forgot it was supposed to be dead, which probably saved a few plants. I assure you this will have little impact, but I did make a good effort in not repeating this mistake once I realized. The good thing is, we get a Scary Shroom, an insane plant, really high value. Attacking from range for cheap is something World 2 really needed, and the negative rarely even activates if you play around it properly. What sucks for me is that this level has football zombies and screen doors.
As it means that he needs to stay alive or every screen door zombie meets costlier alternatives.
This costly alternative is putting a little too much stress on my chompers, which is further multiplied when you realize that since I have no walnuts, I need to place chompers in front of gravestones, and no fume shrooms leaves me even more vulnerable to the final wave zombies. I had to cherry bomb some of those grave zombies and a footballer, but that chomper was still caught with his undies down and died while eating. Now I did unlock a new insta-kill plant. I'm just heading into 2-8 and in turn a disco zombie with no walnuts, chomper or pierce from fume shroom. And the snowballing effect kept going as I needed to pop my ice shroom already to save this lane from the disco, leaving my defense to fight for its life on the final wave. And since the disco spawned in the busiest lane, he proceeded to rip my defense into pieces, including my sunshrooms and also my head. Which means attempt 1 ends here at 2-8, showing you that losing plants makes it all more volatile, and you can really snowball at a speedy pace. After a short break, I started another run. I caught up to where I needed to be. World 1, light, 2-1, light, 2-2, light, 2-3, light. 2-4, the first hard level in the run in my opinion. I navigated properly with my economy and took out all the pole vaulters with chompers to give myself a free win. Deathless so far. 2-6 had me chomping up helmets again, which luckily was in my favour, as I did not need to use Hypno Shroom to defend against the final wave football zombie, which means I entered 2-7 with no deaths on my belt. I had one unfortunate grave spawn, but could not remove it as I required space for my other defenses in my seed slots. I ended up doing fine, almost losing 2 walnuts, and having to use Hypno Shroom out of panic for the football zombie. I realized swiftly after I could have just chopped it instead. But with that, I have returned to 2-8 with only 1 death this time. And with Fume Shroom, this dancing zombie is not an issue at all, and this level is cleared, meaning this attempt is now our PB. I have nothing to say about Doomshroom, I just know he won't be used yet for sure. It seems that the hardest 2 levels are 2-6 and 2-7, because 2-9 does not even have a football zombie and only adds another Fume Shroom victim. And since this is the last level with graves, I bring my Grave Buster and open up space for that top lane. And when the final wave approaches, I get ready to freeze their whole dreams, but ultimately do not need to and save the plant, whilst collecting the letter, giving me a little break from this anxious game mode. I played almost perfect in World 2 and I am really happy with this run so far. And just to let you know, I feel like this conveyor is possible under the rules, it's just getting a bit dodgy now. Just with all these consumable mushrooms, it seems a bit rough killing the football zombies. No more zombies at night for now. We head round the back to see how our Nuzlocke affects these pool levels. First thing, this lily pad cannot die. The second it does, you lose. Either to a bucket ducky, snorkel, or the devil reincarnated dolphin rider zombie. These levels have 6 lanes and let us be filthy rich with increased sun production. It feels so good to be back playing plants like Snopey and Repeater consistently. Aside from that though, exists the surfacing final wave ambush zombies that strain me like the graves did and do definitely limit my defenses in the water, but that has not caused us any issues yet. 3-1 was breezy in fact. It gives me the plant I will not name, which might have to come into use as some titans from the last 2 worlds visit us today for a barbecue. This level of sun production though, and longer levels, easily grant us a row of snow peas and lets us shower our lawn with repeaters and chompers. So no need for squash as of yet, as this is clearly enough, and the last buckethead was devoured. 3-3 introduces the snorkel and the 3-peater. The plant is just another expensive alternative, whilst this zombie is a little annoying goblin. No matter what your defense is, these guys will nibble away at your walnuts, and since outside of nighttime there are no plants that can pierce, it can be painful on the final wave. It's just nothing a Snopey can't handle, and nothing Johnny can't either, although he did suffer some serious head trauma. Though, to save him I required the use of a squash, so rest in peace. I just feel like this is too early to say goodbye. Pool levels really love inviting the most infuriating zombies back to their army. 3-4 we pretty much keep the same roster on us, due to the new Tangle Kelp being another one of those potato mine type insta-kills. We deem neither necessary and function further this level, and just like most of these pool stages, our defense scaled to be too strong for even the pole vaulters to get anywhere. Well, that was until the surfacing zomboids ate through my walnut and I lost a huge defensive plant at the end of the very last wave. So this is bad. Okay, I don't need you to remind me every time. At least now we have Crazy Dave's Twitty Dinkies. I cannot buy the extra seed slot yet, but the rake seems like a must buy every time, unlike the pool cleaners that I skip out on. This though is a really interesting and ambiguous addition. I think you can choose how you view these upgrade plants based on your personal view. There's multiple ways to go about this. I am personally going to treat them as upgrades, so placing them on something does not kill the initial plants, but if that finished product dies, then the original and the upgrades both die. 3-5 might be doable with this rule set. I imagine it is. I just don't know because I would have died from how little pea shooters it was giving me. This is what I'm talking about with the RNG. Jalapeno arrives, but his Zomboni arch nemesis is actually the one that spices the competition up. Lacking walnuts does not really matter for this guy's introduction, but my water lanes are still weaker because of it. Zombonis are insanely tanky. Plus, after they tank those 18,000 peas, they can send in a bobsleigh right after that tanks another 18,000. I wasn't too sure if this level was even doable without insta-kills, but found out that 3 repeaters can kill a Zomboni, meaning 3-6 was done flawlessly. Yeah, I also think you can chomper them, so that would have saved me some headache. 3-7 and the unlock of the Spikeweed. It is a good AoE plant, especially when it's paired with defensive walls. Otherwise, it is just an insta-kill consumable for Zombonis. The opposition also features another tanky zombie buckethead and a snorkel, which really sucks because I have no walnuts anymore. It makes this stage look really bad, but definitely not impossible. I get that 8th slot and conjure a plan to defeat this. I chose 2 lanes of sunflowers, even in the water. I man up with rows of repeaters and snow pea, with my water strat being 2 rows of chompers to eat the sneaky snorkels. This strategy is not perfect, as every time the snorkel dives up, they still get a scratch or 2 onto my purple beasts before they get devoured. And we are really risking their loss here, I just cannot do anything else about it. Meanwhile, I preemptively set up a bunch of spikeweeds so that any zombonis approaching get popped quick. Once the first one arrives, I have already placed enough spikeweeds to survive the rest. Looking back, we already had a good enough defense to probably defend them, but you can't blame me for being too careful. As the final wave hits, I place an extra water chomper to protect the one behind it in desperation. And right as I do that, the second chomper in that lane swallowed its food, meaning I didn't even have to place this extra chomper. And this third guy was so in the open that he got eaten up, and with the completion of this level, we mourn the loss of another trooper, a very useful soldier from our journey. Torchwood is a good plant, doubling RP DPS, but he is the guy who is supposed to make us somehow beat this absolute demon of a zombie with that damn dolphin. This shit echoes in my nightmares. All without Chomper and Walnut, so wish me luck. I need my pool tiles to have DPS, otherwise I can lose. I make up for this by placing an extra row of sunflowers on the grass. This level is introducing the dolphin, so land zombies aren't going to be an issue. And in the water, I placed 2 torchwoods to act as bait for the dolphin's jump, and behind them, cover the water with tangle kelp. And it works, because after the first one jumps over, I place my 4th and final tangle kelp and lose it for the run. Yet with this defense, I make it to the final wave, where even though I'm out of tangle kelp, I cherry bomb the surfaced creepers and the dolphins in one swoop, leading to my victory and celebration, because I finally have another tank to play with. 3-9 is a terrifying last stage. Luckily, Tallnut is going to assist me with it. I cannot comment on if he's better or worse than Walnut, sadly. I wish I had the choice between them to create that opinion. Though in this level, I'm happy to say Toolnut works perfect to counter these Dolphin Riders. Since it's the finale, I really need firepower, so I need to farm early with how expensive defending this level will be later. To ensure this, I didn't bring any pea shooters and greeded for money by placing potato mines at the beginning of the level to give myself a farming advantage and say bye to the little guy. 2 repeaters and a torch would shred everything, including bucket heads, zombonis, and beloved devil riders, meaning we are done with World 3! I was honestly surprised with how I adapted to this on my first attempt, but no complaining on my end. 310 is probably possible with the rules as long as you don't get unlucky. And I know most of the time I'm saying that now, but these conveyors would have added an astronomical level of RNG into the run, which I'm frankly glad to be skipping out on, since parts of this run are already really heavy on RNG. I'm sure you noticed I've used a lot of insta-kills to get here though. Almost all of them actually. I think this makes sense, as World 4 is about to grant me a load of my plants back. Furthermore, insta-kills, apart from the one I kept alive, are falling out of favour already, as they will be less good in World 4 and 5 due to their respective gimmicks. Before I talk about what World 4 has to offer, I want to bring up something I've done in this run for quality of life's sake, which I'm only telling you out of clarity. To ensure I beat this challenge for this video, I gave myself a checkpoint system, where whenever I reach a new world, I back up that save file, and if I were to die, I could restart from that point onwards. I'm sure it's obvious why I did this, but I'll explain it anyway. Imagine I die here at 4-1, I would have to spend 3.5 hours to get back to that point, and that is assuming that things go as well as they did. This was my way of countering that. I might have to go back to older worlds anyway if I end up getting stuck. This does not impact how possible this challenge is, just eliminates the not so fun part of retrying without any variation. I thought this was more relevant right here because World 4 is really looking like a doozy. We're going to spend quite a lot of time on this one. Its mechanic is simply that nighttime is back, alongside the fog. And I have many things to say about this fog. Mainly, it gives up the information you take for granted in knowing what appears where and when. You really need to sacrifice early sun production because you need to scout for coneheads early or otherwise something dies. 2 scaredy shrooms per row take care of the final wave, and the new zombie, the Jacko zombie, only makes you slightly foil your underwear every time you hear his tune, but other than that, it's fine. 4-2 brings back the devil's right hand in Football Zombie, which with no chomper definitely scared me when I saw it. The lantern was a good pickup, it just had to be guarded by a tool nut which was quite expensive. Without the chomper, I ended up killing the football zombies using tool nuts and torched repeaters. And it did numbers, leading us straight to 4-3 and its introduction of the balloon zombie. The cactus is its intended counter, but since only 2 appear in this level, you can just let them pass by and place a cactus only if they happen to appear in the same lane. There are no serious threats on land in this level, but my greed sickened me, it seems, following the death of our puff shroom after I waited too long to back it up with scaredy shrooms. Its loss is not too frightening, as scaredy shroom is mountains better and costs barely anything more. But other than that, the balloons are cleared and I prance over to another level with stinking Dolphin Rider. I actually want to cry. 4-4 feels like a massive jump from the levels so far in this world, and having no puff shroom does make me slightly unhinged. Not even into the first wave of the level, I mess up because of no puff shrooms and lose a lane to a regular ass zombie. Looks like I'll be using that World 4 checkpoint of mine for attempt 3. This one was going so well too. My rickety defense takes care of 4-1 on attempt 3. Then on 4-2, I go too expensive and lose a sea shroom to a pool conehead. So this run is already worse than the last. Luckily, they are not very necessary for the playthrough. I messed up, but it turns out football zombies do not even need a torchwood to be handled safely, as 4 pea shooters worth of firepower is enough to give us the cactus again. 4-3 balloon zombies are both taken out by lawnmowers, and the blower is our help tool for 4-4, but as it can be only used once, it feels like no time to use it will be innately satisfying. There is so much to keep track of in this level. You need to farm well, but leave space for damaging plants, and don't die to coneheads, have money to tool nut the dolphins, and don't die to the water coneheads, and make sure you have cacti for the balloon's onslaught. And this all crept up to me, as in the very final moment of the stage, Having only a scaredy shroom and cactus leads me to not contain this water lane, which lost me a tool nut and repeater. This made me go do Vase Breaker whilst being really salty. I don't know if you can get through this level. You'd have to kill the bucketheads without using the squash unless you specifically left it just for this level. That's why I don't really know about this one. 4-6 had me defeating miners with no wall plants. And these levels are really starting to take the piss with the fog now. My plan for the miners was to leave a row of space behind our sun generation and split P them to kill them. What a plan that was! I had to use an ice stream to protect my poorly placed split P and accepted defeat as I was too broke to defend this miner. Attempt 3 was lost embarrassingly quickly. And to be fair, it was my fault. It did kinda make me panic though. With how difficult it was getting, I was really feeling the absence of walnut and chomper. But as those were pretty much the only two non-consumable plants that I have lost so far, I felt like it was stupid that I needed every plant alive to beat this challenge. Otherwise, I might as well have called this video, I beat Plants vs Zombies without a plant getting eaten and one use of each insta-kill plant. It doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? Because of that, I felt motivated to try and see this 4-1 checkpoint through, and worst case scenario, I'll just redo World 3 perfectly. Attempt 4 was lost as I skipped out on puff shrooms in the early game and let a lawnmower fly, which happened to be the exact lane that had a balloon on it. Attempt 5 got back to 4-3, and with how easy the level is when you actually use your brain, had no casualties. I was now developing a pretty good strategy for 4-4, and managed to get 2 walnuts up right before a dolphin rider even showed up, but sadly, this puff shroom was out in the open. I mistakenly placed the tool nut behind the puff shroom instead of in front of it. And 2 coneheads ambushed me and killed the puff shroom and the lily pad, making me lose the attempt. Okay. Attempt 6 lost at 4-4 again, because I did not have enough time to set up tool nuts. Not a very good strategy anymore, is it now? I decided to use fume shrooms at 4-4 instead of repeaters on attempt 7, realizing that they are good for the final wave. And without any more stupid mistakes, the level is swiftly beaten with no casualties. And on 3-6, I forgot about the 1 space spacing on the top row. And of course, the miner goes there instantly, like, give me a break. As you only need 1 split P for the miner and the other land zombies are a cakewalk, attempt 8 finally beats 4-6, and we are at a personal best now. I decided to use Starfruit to try and kill the miners on 3-7. I have no clue what the hell I was thinking. Not only did it not work, but I let a conehead spawn without 2 scaredy shrooms on it, so I lost the run. Now, on attempt 9, let's try do 4-7 the correct way, and I bolstered a pretty good defense. I sadly placed my lantern 1 tile too far into the fog. This meant I had to protect it with a tool nut, and since DPS was too low, that tool nut was under too much stress and died on the final wave. So rest in peace, my goat. Luckily for me, this was the very best level to lose it on, as now we have the pumpkin as a somewhat replacement. 3-8 brings us the pogo zombie, who was countered by the tool nut, but oh well. I was actually really scared of this guy, and was gaslighting myself on whether he dismounts the pogo or not when he gets low. And whilst I was looking for a video of it, I saw someone use a split P on it, so thanks dude for the idea. And yeah, it worked great. No lawnmowers were even activated, and 3-8 was a breath of fresh air. I was praying to not see Dolphin Rider on this final level, and lucky me, he wasn't actually there. I realized this, but only after choosing my plants, that I no longer needed literally every plant I have equipped, but pumpkin for the next world, so I went ham on the puff shrooms and risk factor. And while I lost my lantern too early, it was fine, it just ruined the viewing experience. I actually had magnet shrooms in the water, you just can't see them. And because of that, the pogos weren't an issue, nor were the balloons, and 4-9 went by so quickly, even though I couldn't see jack shit. And that brings us on to 4-10. And I'm so done with this dookie world, oh my god. Definitely the hardest so far, but let's see if World 5 can trump it. 4-10 is very ominous, but a simple level. This one seems doable theoretically, you just run out of conveyor space pretty quickly. We face sweet victory as our attempt 9 reaches the roof of our house. World 5. And just by looking at 5-1, I am already thinking it could be over. 90% of our damage plants are now useless, and I have no insta-kills for these slimy bungees. I wanted to see how bad it was first though, and oh my was it bad. I might have to expedite that quality of life addition about checkpoints. Whenever a bungee zombie is involved, it's a million times more dependent on RNG. If he targets a sunflower, I lose. If he targets an empty plant pot, I need to sacrifice a useless plant for him to take. Because if he takes a plant pot, I lose. I even took only pea shooter plants to this first level, because I was so scared of losing Cabbage Bolt too early. So even though he is a pea shooter equivalent, he's the only plant so far that can bypass the slant of the roof, and therefore is too valuable. And as it's the first level of the world, it did end up working. I just needed to sacrifice this scaredy shroom and chili this bungee on my sunflower. Useful that I saved that plant up until now, right? But there goes my last insta-kill. This might not be surprising, but if the plant pot dies, you might as well just restart. Not being able to place any more than 3 rows of plants will usually lose you the playthrough. At 5-2, I got overwhelmed really quickly and just lost to a pole vaulter. And attempt 9 was promising, but sadly ends here. And on attempt 10, I tried 5-1 and 5-2 again, but also got overwhelmed, and after losing the pumpkin, I lose the plant pot and quit. Attempt 11 had nice RNG. I had a full defense, but 3 zombies at the end took out pumpkin and starfruit, leaving me with a bittersweet taste. I felt like pumpkin was necessary to win this world, but tried to without it anyway. Colonel Polt is a second catapult, which of course is good. Being able to stun is a really nice trait to have. It's like the snow pea of the roof levels. And no more bungees for a bit, as we now have ladder zombies whose main purpose of the ladder is no more without our dear pumpkin. We were handling the waves and ladder zombies, but on the final wave, all of a sudden, I forgot that the bungee ambush can spawn on the 5th row, and we lose our friend Colonel Polt, meaning Cabbage is our only damage dealer left. Unlocking Coffee Bean for 5-4, its single use was definitely going to be for Magnet Shroom, seeing this level's entourage. My Cabbage Pots were handling it fine. I kind of felt like I had to risk my pots to win by planting on the 5th row though. And after placing snow peas there because they can actually hit the enemies, I placed a Magnet Shroom in the middle, ready for the final wave. And right before this Magnet Shroom died, it stole a ladder but not a helmet, leading to their siege through the middle lane. Attempt 11 was now also a loss. I tested to see if our position makes this level even possible. I did win but lost a plant pot, and either way didn't count it. So instead, attempt 12 had to get back to 5-4, but with pumpkin at our disposal. At 5-1 I got lucky and only had to sacrifice useless plants for the bungees, keeping Chili alive. In 5-2 I lost Cabbage Polt to a bungee and had to chili the pole vaulter, but pumpkin survived. And at 5-3 I was scared Colonels alone were not going to be strong enough. I started setting 3 rows and snow peas. Then on the final wave, 2 ambushes luckily land on my only 2 pumpkins in that column, and this ladder barely dies to the Colonel, giving me a victory with no losses. Now ecstatic that I get to bring Pumpkin into 5-4, I need to try to beat it whilst still keeping him alive. I continue my Colonel Polt spam. Having a defense dependent on butter RNG really doesn't feel so nice. Snowpea does help us here, being the only real useful plant left from our World 1 roster. No pogos or ladders are a problem, but I still need this Magnet Shroom and Coffee Bean for this brawly football zombie and just general assistance. By the time the final wave approaches, I have a full front line with pumpkins, and with some quick decision making, I make some final adjustments into a glorious victory. The fact that every level is taking this much out of me is alarming. I luckily get a calm, relaxing Zen Garden segment. I do feel quite zen in this garden, then 5-5 rolls around, which I am going to claim is close to impossible. I have given lenience to all other carousel levels, but to beat this, you need to somehow have Chomper, Pumpkin, and Cherry Bomb alive. And even if you did, I think you would get overrun, and it would be a miracle if you even survive with just a plant pot left. This isn't even going to mention those bungees on the waves. Good luck surviving with no pumpkins if you have no other walls. I say this one is cooked. 5-6 throws us a garlic, which we will not be using in the correct way. It also introduces the dive rocket launcher, who is barely an issue. For this level, all I had to do was place my defenses 1 up, then use the cheap plant garlic to soak up the guy's attacks. I snow peed on them as well, to slow them down. And after reaching the final wave, with a bit of luck from ambushes, I only lose garlic to a catapult shot. yet still went into 5-7 pleased. Umbrella Leaf counters some of our worst enemies, but they sure are expensive, and the lanes with them are weaker, and a lot of the level comes down to pumpkin spamming. On the second flag wave, a pumpkin gets overwhelmed, leading to the death of it, the kernel, the plant pot, and the run. Unfortunately, attempt 13 fails in the same exact level. Then, attempt 14 beats the level pretty swimmingly. I unfortunately lost the footage, but this level is not hard, so you have to believe me. And look at that, 5-8 marks the fact that we have only 2 levels remaining, an astonishing sight to see. But with it comes the Gargantua, which, with no insta-kills left, I was puzzled to how I was going to defeat it. If it wasn't clear, I set a checkpoint on the second half of this world, just so I can attempt these difficult levels without losing my mind. I decided to use the Repeater, being my highest single target damage and just pumpkin wherever the imp goes. I mismanaged my economy though, and didn't get to do enough damage to the Gargantua in time. Attempt 15 tried the same, but it was definitely closer. Now attempt 16 was where I realized I will need to upgrade this strategy. I bought the Gatling P. I have already told you my stance on these, I just have been avoiding them for some reason. By stalling zombies the most possible, and playing the least possible kernel pulse, I save money to bombard the lane with the Garg. When he arrives, I instantly place a Gatling P and wanted a Torchwood but needed the pumpkin money instead. He threw the imp and wasn't being stunned for a bit, but the butter came in clutch and I have defeated the first Gargantua. But it's not over. I now have to save up money again so I can place another Gatling P for the final wave. The thing is, my prayers come true when the second Garg came to the exact same lane. I placed a Torchwood knowing this lane is going to be packed. I had to pumpkin it to protect it and hoped for the best. The imp landed, my Torchwood, plant pot and pumpkin died. So did the Gatling P and Repeater, followed by a kernel. But he was defeated. The Garg is dead. Sunflower lived until 5-9, meaning it's probably possible to win. I'm cheesed as I get to bring Melonpolt into the final level of the challenge, 5-9. And this was my current strategy. I can now buy roof cleaners because they will be finally doing something. My only catapult is Melonpolt, and my other damage dealer is Snowpea. I farm until I need to place Snowpeas for the incoming zombies. I luck out and get 2 in 1 lane. Remember, I have no pumpkins or plant pots for this fight, but since it's the last level, I can set the roof cleaners off on the zombies and win me it on the final wave. I just need to get there. I placed Melonpolts when I needed to for the incoming Coneheads, which somehow I have the money for. I used Snowpeas for the lanes with no Melonpolts, and then kill them off with my shovel when I can afford the watermelon. Once I have a row of Melonpolts, I sit back. Not because I think these guys can win, maybe they can, it's just that I have to save up money. Since when I have a bunch of money, I can start shoveling away my sunflowers for extra Melonpolts. So rest in peace to the best plant in this whole thing. With an almost full defensive Melonpolt, the final wave approaches, and the Gargantua is closing in on my defense. But I do not care, as I know he and every other zombie dies to the lawnmower, making me a Plants vs Zombies Nuzlocke champion. And just in case you somehow don't believe me, obviously I would lose here in my current spot. But this level is still too much if you don't allow yourself to use the 2 insta-kills, and the second he whips out the RV, you are finished. So that makes this done. I have beaten Plants vs Zombies with Nuzlocke rules. And just in case you're wondering, my personal world order in difficulty goes 1 easiest, then 3, 2, 4 and 5. I would have loved to count conveyors, but I do not think counting them makes this challenge even close to doable, unless you TAS or lose your sanity. If you really think I'm incorrect, how about you prove me wrong? And I'm being serious, I would actually love to see that. I'm not the best PvZ player, I'm just a guy that loves this game, and I still hope you enjoy it nonetheless. Hit some kind of button below the video, and maybe check out some of our other stuff if you feel like it. I'm not too sure I'll do PvZ again, but it was fun just for this Nuzlocke type video, for which Nuzlocking non-Pokemon games might be a series down the line, so keep an eye out for it. I was actually looking at South Park Fractured Butthole next. Anyways, shout outs to anyone that attempted this before me, after me. Shout outs to my boy Alex. Shout outs to you guys. Bye.